Hello, this is Leah from the Chillium Creative. Welcome to my channel. Thanks for joining me today. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about some tools, some crafting tools that are fairly common. You've probably seen them in videos before. Maybe you found this video because you're looking at buying one of them. Or maybe you already have one and you just want to learn a little bit more about how to use it. So these are both products from We Are Memory Keepers. This is the original Crop-a-dile tool. It is a hole punch and eyelet setter. It's a handheld tool. And this is the Crop-a-dile 2, which is also called the Big Bite. I'm going to go through today some of the features on each of these tools and show some examples of how to use them and some situations that you might want to use them in your crafting. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about the differences between the two and which, if either, I find more useful in my crafting. So let's get started. So first I want to talk about the original Crop-a-dile tool, which is the handheld version. You can buy this tool by itself, just the tool, or you can also get it in a case with some eyelets. I received this as a gift, I think for Christmas or my birthday, and it came with the regular 3/16 eyelets in it. And then I've added some to the case that I bought separately. I find this case pretty useful, but not necessary by any means. The tool itself is currently in locked mode, so you'll see it's actually upside down. You'll see there's a button here that has a little lock icon on it. To unlock it, so it has to be in locked position to fit in the case, and it makes it useful even if you don't have a case for storage purposes. To unlock the tool, you just squeeze the handles a little bit, and then on this side you'll see the icon is the lock, but it's unlocked, and you just push on that button. It pops out on the other side, and then that releases the handles to be able to use the tool. On each side of this tool there is a hole punch. One is, you can see the size here, one is 1/8 of an inch, and then the other is a 3/16 of an inch size. 3/16 of an inch is the more common size. You'll find eyelets and things in that size more often, but you can also find eyelets in the 1/8 of an inch size. They're just a little bit harder to find. And then on this end of the tool is the eyelet setter, and there's these cubes that can actually pop up and flip around depending on what you're going to be using it for. What type of eyelet or embellishment you're going to be setting. You'll see some other icons on here showing which way to put the eyelet if you're setting one. It tells you that this is the base, and I think that's mostly it. Oh, you will see there's inch measurements here. This is for the depth guide. So there's a plastic piece here that you can move up and down, back and forth. It goes up to 1 inch deep, and this will help you set the material, or set the hole, I should say, at the same depth on the material. So if you're doing several, say you're doing several tags and you want to set the hole at the top at the same distance from the edge of the material on each one, you can set this depth guide, and then all you have to do is put the material into to where it touches that depth guide, and for each one it will be in the same place, just same distance from the edge of the material. And you have that on both hole punches. On the other side, it shows the depth guide in centimeters measurement. I am in the US and we mostly use inches, so that's the side that I typically use. I'm trying to think if there's anything else on here. I think that's pretty much all of the features. So like I said, you can punch holes and set eyelets. You don't necessarily have to do both, depending on what you're needing this tool for. Okay, so I have a few examples here of instances or projects that you might want to use the eyelet setter for. These are just journal cards made out of a master board, and I used the Crop-a-dile to set eyelets on the corners. I kind of like to offset my eyelets sometimes, especially when I'm doing something that's not technically a tag, but I might want to add some ribbon or string as an embellishment. And then here is a regular tag shape, and I put an eyelet there at the top. Again, you can put string through that, you can put ribbon, you can just leave it plain if you want to. But it adds a nice little detail there that just adds some interest. Now here is something that you might be wondering what this is. This is a insert for making a hidden spine on a journal. So for an example, I like to use hardback books and use the covers from them to make journals. So this is one that I've removed the book pages, and I'm going to use it as a cover for an upcoming journal that I'm making. But because of the way that the cover is, I don't want to stitch on the outside of the spine. So instead, I'm going to sew the signatures to this piece of chipboard and then glue the chipboard into the cover. And it'll be, hidden by the signatures, and so it won't be really visible. But I used the Crop-a-dile to punch small holes in there that I can then sew the signatures to. So that's another idea, another use that you might want to use this tool for. So I'm going to show you on just a couple of test pieces of paper. This is just a thin piece of packing paper, but I want to show you how this works as far as the hole punching goes. So I'm going to look on here. I'm going to use the 3/16 of an inch hole punch, and I'm going to set my depth guide, just move it up a little bit. I'm going to take my piece of material and slide it in against the guide, and then you just squeeze the handles and it punches the hole. And the nice thing about this is that you can see through to where the hole is being punched. So if you wanted to make marks on the piece of paper or to where you want to punch the hole, you could do that and easily see where, if you're lining up correctly with the dot. I did do that on this hidden spine. I kind of marked on here where I wanted the holes and then just punched where I had marked. It's fairly easy to use. I don't have full strength in this hand yet because I broke my wrist a few months ago, but I'm still able to easily use this hole punch, as you can see. So that's just regular paper, and that's just hole punching. You can see it's a clean punch. But what if we want to have something that we set an eyelet for? Before we set an eyelet, which I will show you how to do, I want to mention that both of these tools, both of these Crop-a-dile tools, come with instruction guides. And I highly recommend reviewing this, especially when you go to set an eyelet. So there's a chart on here that shows you exactly which settings to use for which types of eyelets or embellishments that you're going to be setting. I've pretty much only ever used the 3/16 inch eyelets, so I pretty much always keep it at this setting. So the top cube is going to be set on A, and the bottom cube is going to be set on 1. So you can see, hopefully you can see in the camera, that there are, on the top cube, there are letters on the corner. And I'm just going to change this so you can see. So this is the A setting. So that's what you want to have going towards the inside of the tool, at least for the 3/16 inch eyelets. So, and then for the bottom, we want number 1, which hopefully you can see on that cube, it has a number 1. So we want that one facing up. Again, towards the inside of the tool. You want to make sure those are set correctly, or fully seated, I guess, before you go to set your eyelet. So we're going to take this, well, let me open my case here so we can get an eyelet out. And I'm going to grab my tweezers here just to show you what the eyelets look like. Let's see, we'll do a silver one. Okay, so that's what the eyelet looks like from the side. So it kind of looks like a little upside down hat or a T, something like that. So this is the top of the eyelet. That's the pretty side. And then the bottom is what's going to splay out on the other side of the tag to make sure that it's set and won't move off of the tag. Okay, so you're going to, first of all, punch a hole in your tag. I'm going to set that right there. So I'm going to take this tag. I'm just going to kind of eyeball the center. And I like that depth from the edge of the paper or cardstock. Make sure I'm not using the correct one. So this is the 3/16. I'm actually going to bump that up a little bit. Okay, so I'm about in the center. I'm going to go ahead and punch. And then there we have our hole. Now I'm going to set the eyelet in the hole. There. And then I'm going to take the tool and I want to show you, you want to make sure that this icon for the eyelet, hopefully you can see that, is on the top. And you see there's a little arrow pointing down. And then you'll see on this part, there's a label here that says base. So this is the bottom, this is the top. So then we're going to put the little, you'll see on the top here, there's a little knob that kind of sticks out further. That's the part that you want to go down into the eyelet. So hopefully I can show this. Can you see that? So you want the knob to go down into the eyelet, and then you're going to squeeze. And that sets your eyelet. So that's the front, the pretty side, and then that's the back, where it kind of splays out and grips the cardstock. All right, so there's one eyelet set. So you can see it's fairly easy to use. I do recommend, reviewing your instructions and the chart that comes with it. And there's even instructions on here making sure you have the eyelet set the correct way with the top and the bottom. Those are, very helpful if you get lost while you're trying to use this tool. But once you've used it a couple times, I feel like it's pretty easy to use. And especially if you're just using the same kinds of eyelets all the time, you can just kind of set it and forget it. So yeah, it's fairly easy to use. And I have used this quite a bit since owning it. I've had this one longer than I've had the other one. So yeah. If you have one of these, let me know in the comments what you think. And now we'll move on to the Big Bite. Okay, so this is the Crop-a-dile 2. You'll see it here on the handle, hopefully. Crop-a-dile 2, also called the Big Bite. And the reason it's called the Big Bite is because the depth at which you can punch holes and set eyelets into material is a lot larger than the handheld tool. This is more of a tabletop tool, so it's not a handheld tool. You're going to be setting it on your desk or your table and then using the lever to push down and either punch holes or set eyelets. This is the depth guide that I referenced. You can push it all the way up. Depending on which feature of this you're using, whether it's the hole punch for the 1/8 inch or the hole punch for the 3/16 inch or the eyelet setting, they are at different points at the mouth here. So the measurement from that point to the edge of the paper or whatever material you're using is going to be slightly different. So that's why you'll see, hopefully I can show you, you'll see there's 3 different lines here depending on which feature you're using. Now, to change which feature you're using, you're going to use this slider on the top here. So the first, and I don't know if this is because mine is still somewhat new, I haven't used it a lot yet. I find this lever or slider somewhat difficult to move. But you're supposed to be able to kind of push down on it and then slide it either direction. So the first icon here you'll see is the eyelet. So that is the first kind of section on the mouth of this tool. The next one is 1/8 inch hole punch. And then the third one is the 3/16 inch hole punch. And they correspond here on the mouth with the setting on the top. So the first hole punch here is the 1/8 inch and the second one is the 3/16 inch. So the nice thing about this tool, besides the fact that you can now use these features with wider material, which I will show you in a second, is that it is a lever instead of a squeeze tool, like a hand tool. If you have any kind of issues with grip strength in your hands, whether you have arthritis or something else, this may be a little bit easier for you to operate. Now, again, I don't have full grip strength in my hand at the moment because of breaking my wrist, but I can still use the handheld tool fairly easily. Sometimes I do feel, especially when setting eyelets, I do feel like I need to use both hands just to make sure that that eyelet is set fully. But with this one, I end up using both hands kind of to push down on it and make sure that it's fully set as well. But it is a little bit easier on my hands. So keep that in mind if that is a concern for you while you're shopping for these kinds of tools. Let me show you some examples of ways that I use this Big Bite. The reason that I wanted one of these is because I saw someone using it to punch holes in signatures for their journals. I think it was actually Pam at the Paper Outpost that I first saw doing this, and I wanted to test it out, thinking maybe that would be a better option than using a pokey tool or an awl or whatever to poke holes in the signatures in the hidden spines that I'm making. So I have a little bit of a mini example here. This is just a miniature journal notebook kind of thing with a cardstock cover. So I was able to use this tool to punch through all these layers. Now, this is thinner paper. It's just like packing paper. But then this is cardstock. But it was able to punch through all of those layers in one go very easily. So yeah, I think it worked really well for that. And again, this is not something that I would be able to use the handheld for because of the width of the material here. And even I might be able to come in from the top and the bottom to get these two holes, but I wouldn't be able to reach the middle one. So that is one benefit of having the big bite. So that's one example. Now, if you have a full-size journal, the material is going to be even bigger than that, right? Typically, depending on what size journal you're making. So I'm going to just show you how to punch a hole, because that's the main thing that I use this for. Again, we need to move this slider over. I'm sure maybe it's me. I don't know. I find this hard to slide over. So that's on the 1/8 inch, and that's the setting that I'm mostly interested in using on this. So this is just plain white paper, but it's a full size 8.5 by 11. This is kind of an example of what you might be using for the signatures of a journal, right? So you can do this either way, either on the inside of the signature or on the outside. I think it's going to be a little bit easier to do it on the outside. So I'm just going to kind of flatten that paper back out. I don't know if you can still see kind of the bend or fold line there. So I'm going to look on here. So I'm using the 1/8 inch hole. This is 8.5 by 11. So it should be to the center, it should be 5.5, right? Half of 11. So I'm going to, sorry, I keep bumping the camera. I'm going to move this guide to 5.5. Hopefully I'm doing my maths correctly. It was never my favorite subject in school. And then I'm just going to kind of eyeball this. If I was doing an actual signature for my journal, I probably would have marked the middle point and then the two end points, just so that they're consistent throughout all of the signatures. But for today's example, I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm going to move this out of the way just so I have a little bit more room. Now, this is going to be hard to show on camera because we're kind of top down here. But when you're using this, or at least when I'm using this, it's easier to kind of look at it from the side. So you can then see where the punch is coming down to punch the hole. So you would actually be looking at it from this angle. Like I said, that's really hard to show on camera at this point, but that's kind of how you're going to be looking at it. So this is approximately the middle, so we're just going to go for it. So you just push down on the lever and it punches the hole. So now this is a little bit off center. I don't know if I have it off center on the guide or if the measurements on the guide are just slightly off. But that's a nice clean hole punch, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do another example here. Let's see if I can push it up just a tad. See if that makes a difference. Okay. Again, just kind of eyeballing it and then punch. So then that one, I adjusted it a little bit to see if I could get it right on the line. And now it's a little bit to the right of the line. That's okay. This is just our example, but anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and do the third hole. And it was as easy as that. It is really not hard to do the punch or, push down the lever on this tool. So then when you are done, your little bits from your hole punch are going to be underneath the tool. And we'll just get rid of those. Those are the holes. I'm not going to set an eyelet in here because I don't want to waste an eyelet on just a scrap piece of paper. But if you wanted to set eyelets in this far for some reason, you could. And it would be, very easy with the big bite. Now, both of the tools, both of the Crop-a-dile tools, are supposed to be, you're supposed to be able to use them on other materials besides paper or chipboard, cardstock, whatever. This is actually the guide that came with my big bite, and it shows multiple different kinds of material. So paper, chipboard, actually shows fabric, thin tin, leather, and plastic. So I was curious. I mean, I bought mine or got mine with the intention that I would use it for paper and, maybe chipboard. But when I saw that, I decided I wanted to test both of the tools out using some other materials. Now, I don't have a plethora of those kinds of materials necessarily, but I found a few things in my closet that I thought would be good to test with. So I'm going to show you what the results were with that. So I had some vinyl leather, a roll of it from another project I made that I thought would be kind of interesting to test with. I had a strap, kind of a woven strap from a shopping bag that I clipped off the shopping bag. And then I had a couple different kinds of fabric. So we'll look at this one first. So this is the vinyl kind of leather material. With both of the tools, the Crop-a-dile 2 and the handheld, the original, it punched the hole, but not super cleanly. So if I flip this over, you'll see that there are still tabs here, and they're holding on by, just a couple threads or whatever. So that's not a huge deal. I can clip those off with some little scissors. That's not an issue necessarily for me. Now, the holes themselves are not very clean. The edges are not very clean. So I wouldn't probably want to just leave the holes plain. I would want to make sure that I have an eyelet or something like that in there to kind of provide more of a finished look, I guess. So on this strip, I tested out a couple eyelets, and you'll see it looks really clean and nice. So I could definitely see myself using this in maybe a closure for a journal, or something along those lines. I think that could look really cool. So that was kind of encouraging. Now the next one I did, this woven kind of strap from the shopping bag, is so fibrous and has lots of threads in it that it didn't really punch a hole completely. There is a hole there. There is a gap. My fingernail can poke through part of it. But all the fibers are pretty much still there. They're just kind of off to the side, right? So not the cleanest look. I probably could clean this up with some scissors and put an eyelet through it, and it would look fine, but not the, most finished looking thing. And And then I had a couple, like I said, I have a couple different kinds of fabric here. One is a very stretchy fabric. It's like a knit rayon kind of fabric, very soft. And so I knew that this was probably going to have some issues because it is so forgiving and stretchy. So I don't even know if I can find it on here, but I did try to punch a hole. See if I can. See, I can't even find it now. Oh, maybe here it is. Yeah, here we go. You may not even be able to see it. There is a tiny hole that just looks like a snag, really. So basically what happened was, and I can show you here, so we'll unlock this. So I tried to punch a hole, just put it, let me try the bigger hole, bigger punch. So I just put the fabric in here like I would, the paper, and kind of held it on the sides, but then tried to punch it. And you can hear it kind of cut the fabric a little bit, but if you'll see in there, the fabric just kind of stretches around the punch. So it doesn't actually punch a hole. It kind of cuts it in a couple places, but it doesn't actually punch a hole. So for what it's worth, that didn't go as hoped. Like I said, I didn't have high expectations for this type of fabric because it's so stretchy. But anyway, this is more of a cotton, kind of like a quilting fabric, and it did actually create a hole, but there's still a tabby on the other side, right? So it didn't completely cut the hole. And it's definitely not a clean punch. It's very kind of raggedy. So I'm probably not going to use these tools for fabric or fibrous kind of material because that's not like super clean or successful, but I probably would try to use it again for this vinyl material going forward, as long as I'm using eyelets in that case. So out of the two tools, is there one that I like better or that I find myself using more? And I do think that the handheld version is probably more versatile, or not versatile, but you can use it for probably a wider range of projects than you're going to be using this Big Bite for. At least that's what I found personally. I like both products really well. Again, the only complaint I really have for the Big Bite is that my slider doesn't go back and forth very easily, which you don't want it to slide too easily because you don't want it to like slip off onto another setting while you're trying to use one setting. But yeah. So for what it's worth, that's my opinion. Again, both of these I got as gifts. But if I were starting from the beginning and I were trying to choose a tool to invest in, I would probably go with the regular original Crop-a-dile. Again, this is from We Are Memory Keepers. That's the brand. And you can find them on Amazon. You can find them on scrapbook.com. Lots of different crafting websites. You probably can get them at Hobby Lobby or Joann's or Michael's, whatever. They're pretty easy to find. So yeah, that is all for now. If you have any questions about either of these tools, please leave a comment below. And let me know if you have these tools. Let me know which of them you prefer, or which one you find yourself using the most. So yeah, this is all for now. I will see you in the next video. I hope you have a great day. Thanks. Bye.